and welcome to the Glow Podcast today. I am your host, Taylor, and I am here with Joe Marshall from DP Derm. And I'm just going to ask you to go ahead and kind of introduce yourself and tell me what brought you into kind of the world of skincare. So yeah, just go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, not a problem. So it's Joel Marshall and CEO of DP Derm. We've been around since about the end of 2016. Basically what DP Derm is it's a distribution company for Dermapen World in the United States. Do you know much about Dermapen World or the Dermapen?
No, I definitely enlighten all of us.
Well, if you don't know much about microneedling is obviously lots of little needles. Then we do automatic microneedling, which you have a device and it vibrates those needles into the skin. So in 2010, Dermapen World came up with the first automatic microneedling device, and then in 2016 we started DP Derm to distribute that along with all the skincare here in the US. Dermapen World is actually my family's company, so we were the ones that invented that, and then we saw the need to come here directly to try and work the US market. So it's been a very interesting ride, that's for sure, and it's really been interesting to see how from when we started, how microneedling has really blown up all across the globe. And then there's obviously a lot of people that have followed suit with that too and copied us, but yeah.
I feel like that's so cool because microneedling obviously is a huge innovation. And so what, I guess, main innovations have you seen within the industry of really microneedling and anything else that's kind of come over in like the last however many years?
When I look at the industry as a whole and not just microneedling, I would say one of the biggest changes that I've seen is just the acceptance of getting treatments and the acceptance of people from getting not just microneedling but surgery, cosmetic surgery, everything. Back in the day, people would get that and then not tell anyone about it.
Yeah.
Now it's completely different. People are putting it on their socials, people are talking about it. There's no longer that stigma around getting treatments, which is great because more people are getting all sorts of different treatments. And I see then with microneedling, before we started with, say, the device, we used to have rollers and other types of microneedling devices. And we've just seen an advancement then in the technology and being able to create better and better results with the microneedling device. But then really combining that with other extras like different products that you can use during the treatment, before the treatment, after the treatment, and then definitely at home to enhance the results. So on the whole, I can see really the industry progressing in many different ways.
I do think there's been a huge shift in kind of how people view different treatments, especially because everyone is being a lot more transparent with, what they're having done. And so it's like you said, kind of the stigma of everything is gone now. So, well, not gone completely, but it's getting a lot better. And I'm sure that we'll continue to see that progress with just more transparency as well. So I think that's amazing. What do you kind of foresee for the future of skincare treatments, including microneedling and of course other things evolving with technology and new innovations? What do you kind of see on the forefront that's coming up?
I see like a really big shift with technology or with products has been with, say, exosomes and cell technologies. So we're starting to look, say, more internally and what they can do, or what we can do with different cell technologies and how that can affect our system, our skin, everything. So, and moving forwards, I think there's going to be a lot more combination on how we can affect the internal system to then affect our external system, because really the skin is a canvas, right? And it really does show on many different levels what's happening inside our body. So if there's some sort of, if our gut health isn't working properly, or we have vitamin D deficiencies or many other things, you see that on the skin. Moving forwards, when we look at all the different ways that they're looking at anti-aging for internal medicine, that also affects our skin. Now, as a microneedling company, we're focusing more on the outside, but I can see how there's a lot more movement towards looking at the internal mechanisms and how they're affecting the external. So when you look at, if they can, and we're on the cusp of many different technologies on making us live longer, healthier. So when our insides are healthy, we're going to see that also reflected on the outside. So even us as a company, even though we are focusing on skin a lot, we're starting to look more on the internal side as well, and what to add to the treatment to get the overall skin health look better.
I think that that's so important too, because of course our bodies, they are, a whole system and they all work together. So I think that that's a really, really important point that you brought up, especially with the exosomes. Can you speak just a little bit more to that and kind of explain, what that is in a little more detail? And yeah.
Do you know what an exosome is?
A little bit. I know about some of the cellular therapy and all of, like you were saying, a little bit more of the internal side of things, but I would love to hear you speak on it a little more.
I think maybe 10 years ago, cell therapies were really big, but then they didn't quite live up to the hype. And simply because when you look at cell therapies and you're trying to use one cell from someone else and use it on another person, there's a lot of biomarkers in that cell which makes it not compatible. So what we get with exosomes is a much, much smaller particle. So basically what an exosome is, when one cell wants to talk to another cell, it uses exosomes to do that. So exosomes are essentially a communication package.
Okay.
So it's like a little envelope that's got a message to send to another cell. So within that envelope, there's lots of different things. There's growth factors, there's amino acids, there's proteins, and you can also use it to package other ingredients as well. So the idea is then there's this mRNA instruction included that really tells another cell what to do. Now, all cells in general, not just our body, but like all cells use exosomes for that communication. So whether it be plant, animals, humans, whatever, that's the process of cells interacting with each other. So then if we think about that mRNA instruction from telling another cell that message, it's really, really important then, if we're going to use exosome therapies, is where is that message coming from, because that's going to tell this other cell what to do. So if you're looking at different exosomes, really looking at the source of the exosome is super important. So that's the first step when we're looking at exosomes, is it really is a messenger vesicle. So, and you can get, as I said, you can get exosomes from all different cells, and there are many different companies that are using exosomes within therapies from different sources. So there's companies that will use, say, plant exosomes, or they'll use, say, exosomes from fish, and obviously human-derived exosomes as well. But if you think about that, do you think that a cell from a plant is biocompatible with a human?
No, I wouldn't say so. But I mean, I don't know. The world's crazy, so maybe.
Well, there's going to be growth factors and proteins that you're going to get from the plant, which is great, but you're not going to get the true strength of an exosome, because you're not going to, that mRNA messaging will not be biocompatible to the human.
Yeah.
And that's why you see that generally the exosomes that are being used in many different therapies that are more effective are human-derived therapies. But of course, that's also, you got to, like, across the world, there's also issues with that too. So in, say, South Korea or Japan or America, we can actually use human-derived therapies or exosomes. Whereas if you go to Europe or many other different countries, they're not allowed to actually use human-derived. So they do something what's called biomimetic exosomes, which means they take that human-derived exosome and then they synthesize it. So they're able to get a similar end product, but it's still not quite as strong or as powerful as getting the human-derived exosome. So now, when we talked about cell therapies having biomarkers, then which made them rejected by a different human. When you're looking at an exosome, it's so small, it's not a living cell itself. It doesn't have those same sort of biomarkers, which then would have you reject it as a foreign particle. So that's why exosomes do work really well for different therapies. But then you got to ask, what about if you're getting a human-derived exosome? Because you can get exosomes from all different parts of the body. So what would you think would be important when looking at exosomes that you're getting that are human-derived?
I'm not sure. I guess it would be what part of the body you were using the exosome on. Like if you were using it on someone's skin, then you would want to get the exosome from the skin. But again, not sure.
But the good thing about exosomes is generally they're going to be derived from something called a mesenchymal stem cell. And I know people say that different ways, but that's my Australian way I say it. And mesenchymal stem cells can be found in many different areas of the body. Like you can get it from fat, you can get it from bone marrow, you can get them from placenta, from umbilical cord, you can get them from amniotic fluid. But what happens, or how you get the exosomes, is you extract the mesenchymal stem cells, then you put that, and then you take that to a lab or laboratory, again, as I say it. And then in the laboratory, you're going to replicate those stem cells. And
Okay.
then as you replicate them, you extract the exosomes from there. Then if you're thinking, all right, you can get it from fat, bone marrow, umbilical cord, etc., where would you think is the best place to get the exosomes from, or the stem cells from?
I have no idea. I feel like you're just surprising me. I'm like, you have so much background on this and so much knowledge. I'm like, I have no idea.
So, well, if you think about it, if it's coming from fat, where is that fat coming from? Because that's you got to always ask this question. What is
Yeah.
the source, right? So if it's coming from fat, where is the fat coming from? And that fat is coming from someone, maybe a young, like an 18, 20-year-old that is getting liposuction. Right? And then
Okay.
that fat is being donated, and then you extract the stem cells from there, etc., etc. Uh,
Okay.
so now you've got a human that is an adult, so they've got environmental factors, they've got, that they're not a baby, so which
Yeah.
means they've got all of their own, I guess, cell degradation that has happened over their 18 to 20 years. They're also getting liposuction, so are they the healthiest person anyway to be extracting mesenchymal stem cells from? So yes, there's going to be growth factors, there will be other proteins, and there will be that mRNA instruction, but is that going to be as good a source as, say, from umbilical cord or from placenta or amniotic fluid, where you've got this young, fresh source that doesn't have any of those age and environmental factors or getting liposuction, basically.
Yeah.
So this is one of the things in the industry that everyone agrees on, is that the younger the source, the better the message.
Okay.
Because it's gonna be a much more healthier source to get the stem cells from, and then the exosomes that you derive from that. And that's why we get it from the amniotic fluid. So it's the youngest source that you can get.
That's really cool. I see. I haven't heard a whole lot about all that, so I feel like it's really really enlightening to hear about all of that. How long has this research been going on for? I'm so interested because it's something I haven't heard a ton about. So yeah, I'm just interested to know.
I would say for like around maybe 20 years or more. So it's not
Okay.
new. It's just really blown up in the last few years as people have really seen what can be achieved with exosomes. So on a medical level, they see that they've been able to regrow spinal column, which they've never been able to do with anything else. In Japan and, say, South Korea, they do a lot of cancer treatments. So you actually take the exosomes and you actually inject them into someone, and that's a whole nother topic as well,
Yeah.
which I don't know. Do we have time to go into that a little bit or not really?
Yeah, no, for sure. If you want to talk to that, I would love to hear more about that for sure.
Well, it's obviously not a treatment that's possible to do in the US because it's not an approved product. So I can say what they do overseas, but basically they're having a lot of success with treating different cancers. But say, how do you treat, say, multiple myeloma as opposed to, say, leukemia or something like that? Because they're completely different cancers. So if you're going to use the same sort of exosomes to do that, how are you going to differentiate what the exosomes are looking for? So the good thing about a mesenchymal stem cell, it's something that's called multipotent, which means it can do lots of different things. So it's not just designed to do one thing. So what the lab that we use does is when they take the mesenchymal stem cell and then they replicate it in the laboratory, when you replicate it, you have to feed it something. So what you feed it is obviously like what we feed ourselves affects our health, affects what we do. So what you feed that stem cell or the culture medium you use can then direct what that exosome will look for. So for instance, that lab, if they're looking at treating multiple myeloma, which is cancer of the bone, they will actually feed it bone marrow in that culturing process. So now that mesenchymal stem cell becomes directed towards looking at bone, and then the exosomes then, when you then inject them into someone, are really focused on looking for bone material or bone to then, I guess, renew the bone and get it back to a healthy state. And so that's what they've been using very successfully to treat different types of cancers.
Wow, that's amazing. And is there, I know you said right now it's not approved in the US, is there anything that they're moving forward to get this approved in the US? Because I would think with it being able to, or there's studies obviously that have shown that it is successfully treating cancer. Are there any efforts being made in the US?
Yeah, not on that sort of level as far as I know, but there's definitely quite a number of companies that are working towards getting FDA approvals for different conditions. It's a very long and very expensive process. Although they are having success with that outside of the US, I don't see that sort of approval happening for a number of years. So what most companies then in the US are using exosomes topically. So if the company doesn't make any claims about the results of a product, or say it's trying to cure any particular, disease or condition, and it's being used topically, as far as I know, the FDA doesn't really look at it. But as soon as you start doing injections, as soon as you start claiming some sort of cure, or it can help with something, so you're making a claim, then the FDA will want to see proof, studies, everything else, which is a whole long process and takes a whole lot of money.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes complete sense. And with DP Derm, do you all have anything that you are using with exosomes, like even if it is just topically?
Yeah. Yeah, we have exosomes for skin and we have exosomes for hair. So like I was saying before, I mean, I can't make any claims with that, but I say we use them topically for skin and we use it topically for hair. And again, we differentiate them by what we culture those cells with. So for instance, when we take those stem cells and culture it for skin, we feed it trophoblast cells, which is what makes the placenta. But then with that, we also feed it fibroblast cells. So then that particular product is looking towards the skin. Whereas for our hair products, instead of fibroblast cells, we feed it dermal papilla cells from hair follicles. So then that's going to be focused more on hair.
Okay, awesome. And for your business too, this is just something I'm curious about. Do you all sell primarily B2B? Like, are you selling to other offices, or is it primarily B2C?
Yeah, primarily it's been B2B. So we have our microneedling device, which has to be sold to a medical office. And then with that, we have a product range that takes someone from before the treatment, during, after, and at home. So now that at-home products, which have been used to enhance the in-clinic treatments, we are also now doing B2C as well. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I was just curious. So I guess kind of what inspired you to kind of get into this industry, and really even, learning about these new treatments with exosomes, and really anything, like what inspired you to be in this market?
I mean, I didn't set out to do it, to be honest. Dermapen World, like I said before, is the manufacturer, and that's my family's company. My father actually started that original business, I think like 48, 49 years ago.
Okay.
And they were originally selling medical equipment to hospitals. But then in the late 90s, they came across hair removal lasers.
Okay.
And our company, or my father's company, was one of the first to bring hair removal lasers into Australia, because if you didn't hear the accent yet.
Yeah. No, I definitely have.
So once we brought those hair removal lasers in, then we really started to shift towards more of the aesthetic treatments. So then we started distributing lots of different devices and products, and then we even tried to make our own laser as well. But then in 2009 or 10, we then produced the Dermapen. And from that point, then we looked at, okay, now we've got our own device. Instead of just being a distributor, we're now a manufacturer, and we needed distributors all over the world. So that's when we started branching out internationally. And we were here in the US through a different distributor, but then we came to more direct in 2016.
Okay, yeah.
So didn't set out to do it, but just as time was gone by, we've focused more and more on this industry, and then that's where we are today.
Yeah. So you're kind of born into it a little bit. It was your calling. You didn't you didn't necessarily want to get into it, but it's like, well, I have all of this going on already.
So if I would rather be doing this than many other different opportunities, because I do care about skin, and I do care about health, and I do love learning. So I love learning about like what we were just talking about with exosomes, and then being able to explain that to someone else. I really enjoy that side of it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, even just listening to you talk about the exosomes, like I can tell you're very, very passionate about what you do. And like you said, the learning portion of it, the innovation. And I feel like that's a lot really in any aspect of the medical field. There's always innovation. And if you're not innovating, then
Yeah.
you're kind of getting left behind. So I feel like that's a huge portion of it. What has been one of the most rewarding experiences so far with your career with innovation and really anything that just like sticks out to you where you're like, this was absolutely amazing?
I would have to say that you don't see too many Australian brands really going worldwide and blowing up worldwide. So when I look at that, it makes me proud, and
Yeah.
it really makes me feel good to see us as one of the maybe there's some more, but like I can't think of any off the top of the head of any other real Australian brands that have gone worldwide like we are. And then in many places it's a household name. So if you go anywhere in the world and you talk about microneedling, people know Dermapen. So that I find proud.
Yeah. No, definitely. I feel like that's super, super cool, especially like you said, not many Australian brands in general, not even just in the skincare industry, but have made it really where, like you said, it's a household name. So that's super, super awesome. Leading kind of into one of my next questions, what are kind of some common misconceptions that people have about microneedling or really the skincare industry in general that you have heard a lot that you're like, wow, this is just not true? I feel like social media, everyone kind of being able to say, whatever they want online, there's a lot of misconceptions about really everything. So if there's anything that kind of sticks out to you.
I would have to say that obviously there's a lot of good products that you can use at home, and there's a lot of great treatments that you can do at home, but I still feel there's the necessity to go into the clinic to get real treatments. And the stuff that you're using at home is about enhancing those treatments. So yes, there is a lot of great products, but still go into your treatment specialist or your clinic, the medical office, and talk to them about what you can get done, but then also look at how you can enhance those treatments at home. So just thinking also on the flip side, don't just get the treatment in clinic and not do the treatments at home or use the products at home. It's got to be about a holistic approach where you're not just getting the treatment in clinic, you're doing the home regimes as well, but then eating healthy, sleeping well, all of the above. Like if we want to be healthy, it's a whole
Yeah, being healthy really is a holistic approach. And I feel like you said too, it is really, really important for you to see, your medical doctor for things, because obviously everyone is different and they're the only person that's going to be able to give you kind of that individualized attention that you need. And then also you can do the upkeep of all of that on your own. So I think that that's really, really great advice for sure. Do lifestyle factors kind of like diet, sleep, and stress, impact the skin? And can you kind of speak to that a little bit? Because you just kind of brought that up with the holistic approach. So I know that you obviously believe that too. So can you kind of speak to that a little bit more?
Well, I'll ask you, how good did you look the last time you didn't, you had 2 hours sleep?
Not very good.
Or maybe you had a couple of too many drinks or whatever. And so,
Yeah.
Or you ate too much or you ate the wrong types of foods. So, I mean, it's huge. And if you're not doing those, if you're not trying to get good sleep and you're not trying to eat healthy and exercise and do all of that, you can do all the treatments in the world. You're not going to have the same results as if you are trying to keep this body as a whole healthy. So sleep is super important, and we learn more and more every day about how important sleep is. Drinking water, eating the right types of food, even knowing the right types of food for your particular body, because it could be healthy for someone else but not for you. And now today there's lots of different tests that you can do to try and to focus on yourself as an individual, and I really see that as also the focus moving forward with a lot of treatments, is really individualized treatments.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's so important. And it is obviously, like you said, I mean, when I personally am not feeling good like internally, I feel like externally too you can kind of notice it. So it goes back to even what you were saying earlier on about, you know, just all of your systems working together. You can feel it when you're kind of not maybe looking your best too at the same time. So those two things definitely go hand in hand. And we kind of talked about this too a little bit earlier, but besides exosomes, is there anything else that you're really excited about with innovations that are coming out?
Yeah, if I look at, say, not what we're doing, but in the industry as a whole,
Yeah.
I mean, I see where exosomes are now, and I see that there's a lot more potential of what we can do with looking at different cell therapies. But, you know, we're really on the cusp right now of like true anti-aging, like learning
Yeah.
how, stopping out the shortening of our telomeres, right? So our cells replicate better. Once we get to that stage, when we're living, say, to 150, 200, right? But not just living, we're living healthy, and that starts to get to be the holy grail. So there's so many different really amazing people out there that are working on that, and that I think is some of the most exciting things for the future.
Yeah, no, that's really, really exciting because I feel like when I think of like 150 right now, I'm like, oh, I don't even know if I want to live that long, you know? Because like, what's your quality of life going to be like
Correct.
at that point? But if we're able to live to 150 and you're living a really good quality life where you're still, you know, moving around and all those things, that's really amazing to hear, you know, that we're researching that right now. Obviously we're not there yet, but there's being progress made towards that point. So yeah, no, that's awesome.
I mean, I've heard some people say within 5 to 10 years, but I don't know about that. We'll see. But
That
there
seems
is,
kind of quick.
well, like some of these people that are in that zone, that are really researching that, that's what they're saying. Now,
Yeah.
I think sometimes that's a little bit optimistic. But when you look at how we can really work with the genome now with CRISPR and other technologies, I mean, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. No, it definitely is exciting. Yeah, it's crazy to think about. I mean, they definitely know more than I do. So if they're saying 5 to 10 years, that makes me extra optimistic.
There we go. And we'll continue to work on helping your skin health get better and better and better as well.
Yeah.
And also some other technologies like lash and eyebrow products. So
Yeah.
this is a special little product which is everyone is loving right now.
Okay, what does that do?
So I have to be careful about making claims, but
Yeah.
use it on your lashes and your brows.
Okay.
And if you look at other competitive products like Latisse, which are doing something very similar about, lengthening the lashes and brows, that has chemicals in it called prostaglandins, which often discolors the eyes, and even it can actually discolor the irises themselves, or the eyes themselves. So with this product, we're using exosomes to do it. So we don't have any of the side effects from the chemicals that are used in those products. So it's not only more affordable, it works really, really well and without any of those sorts of side effects. So that one is just blowing up right now.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I've seen a lot of like the lash and eyebrow growth ones, but I have heard of like definitely some kind of weird side effects with some of them, like your eyelashes falling out eventually, and like just kind of things where you're like, I don't know if I want to risk it, you know? But with it being that technology that you talked about earlier, the exosomes and everything, that sounds amazing, especially because I feel like for especially women, you know, they want longer eyelashes, longer eyebrows too. So that's a really, really amazing product.
Yeah. I mean, I had a doctor tell me about 2 weeks ago that he'd started to get some gray hairs in his eyebrows, or sorry, he called them white hairs, so not gray. And he's plucking them out, of course, but they're not regrowing. And he started using this, and they started growing again. So I can say that
Wow.
because it's anecdotal thing that he told me, not making a
Yeah,
claim.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean that's amazing, especially if it's like he was getting white hairs and then now they're not growing in white. That's really really cool. Do you guys have anything similar to that too for like hair? You said hair too. So do you have like a similar product kind of to that for hair?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have our in-clinic product, which we use with microneedling, so that's what you'd get in the clinic.
Okay.
But then, of course, particularly with hair, you need to really support it with a lot of with at-home protocols. Because
Yeah.
definitely with hair, if you're not doing the at-home protocols, you lose the value of the in-clinic treatment. We like to do a holistic approach, so we have then a pre-shower mask, which gets rid of all the dead skin cells.
Okay.
And then there's the shampoo and conditioner, which has got lots of nutrients for your hair. I won't go into it too much. I'll just give you a very brief overview.
No, that's good.
Even the conditioner itself, we actually want you to massage that into the scalp. Most conditioners, you don't want to do that. You just put it into the hair. With this, we want you
Yeah.
to actually massage it into the scalp. And then this tonic is what they would use instead of something like minoxidil.
Okay.
So, and that's got the exosomes plus something called PDRN or polyribonucleotides. So with those two major ingredients plus many more, we're seeing really, really nice results. So we do that's the home regimen, and then you've got the in-clinic regimen.
Okay, cool. So it's a whole process kind of with like you guys supply not supply all of that stuff, but make everything kind of for a full scope treatment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you can do the in-clinic, and a lot of people are even just having success using the home products.
Yeah.
But for the best results, you'd want to go into your nearest medical provider that has this and get the treatment and then do all the home protocols too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And where would somebody go to get the treatment? Would they go to their dermatologist or a skincare clinic?
Well, they would have to, I think on the Dermapen, like our website is dpderm.com, but there is the Dermapen World, which is a worldwide website. On there, there's actually a clinic finder that they could use, so dermapenworld.com. And that'll have anyone which has our microneedling device at least.
Okay.
And hopefully, they're bringing on board their hair exosomes as well.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I just wanted to make sure that people are able to kind of find that if they want to use that as an option. So that's amazing. Thanks so much for telling us that. And I feel like having the clinic finder on your website is amazing. So it's really, really easy access for where people can go to get kind of the closest treatment for them.
And if they want to get the retail products, they can go to dpderm.com. So that's
Okay.
the US website. So then they can actually purchase it there. It will be slightly cheaper if they get it from their doctor, but they can also get it from our website too.
Okay, awesome. That's cool. And I guess kind of closing out a little bit, is there, besides obviously dpterm.com, is there anywhere else, and I will include that too in the show notes so people have access to that URL if they want to go and check it out. Is there anywhere else that is a good place for people to find you or find DP Derm online?
I mean, dpderm.com is the main one. And
Okay.
for auxiliary information, there's dermapenworld.com.
Okay, awesome. And I'll include both of those in the show notes, like I said. And thank you so much for talking everything skincare and also especially kind of those innovations that we're making with exosomes. That was super amazing to hear about. And I feel like will be really, really enlightening for not only myself, but also all of the listeners for the podcast. So I really, really appreciate that.
Not a problem. I always try to make those sorts of subjects just a lot easy to understand for people.
Yeah.
And I hope that was that today.
Yeah, no, you did a really good job. I feel like that's the most I've ever heard about it. And I feel like I have a decent understanding. Like I also want to, do a little bit of my own research because I feel like sometimes, you can just pick up on like bits and pieces as you're kind of going along. But that was absolutely amazing. And I feel like you did a really good job of making it a really complex topic, but also easier to understand for people.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, of course. Well, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll talk soon.
All right, Taylor. Pleasure.
All right. Bye.